Hi, I want to welcome everybody to the January 2026 meeting of the Parrot Club. I'm Amy Hopkins, the president of the club, and we're very excited to have Julie Murad of the Gabriel Foundation here with us tonight. And Julie established the Gabriel Foundation in 1995 in Aspen, Colorado, after the loss of Gabriel, her first hyacinth macaw. And it exists to serve the welfare needs of parrots everywhere through education and outreach. The foundation provides companion parrots and related birds a safety net, adoption opportunities for new families, lifetime care, and collaboration with veterinary, aviculture, behavioral, and mainstream animal welfare resources about the needs of parrots in homes and in shelter environments. Over the years, she has presented worldwide to bird clubs, to veterinary and agricultural conferences, at veterinary schools, to mainstream animal welfare organizations, and is avid about conservation. Currently providing for up to 250 parrots daily, the Gabriel Foundation provides unique insight into the resources, human, time, and financial, required to sustain the collective needs for the health and welfare of its flock and the individual bird. Julie's first bird, a budgie, entered her life by landing on her shoulder when she was 8 years old. In 1972, her fascination with parrots was sealed when her first large bird, a wild-caught Amazon, came into her life. Birds have been central to Julie's life for over 50 years, and there has not been a day since then that Julie has not shared a life and home with a bird. Her home is filled with a variety of parrot species, her 3 dogs, and several four-legged farm animals that live on the 36-acre property. When asked which species/bird is her favorite, her answer is the one I'm with right now. So with that, I will turn the mic over to Julie.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm delighted to be with everyone here today. It's wonderful to be engaging and engaged with people who love birds, who care about birds, who have curiosity, and who want to learn. Because in my life, when I think about my time with parrots, as an adult, it's been for half a century. 50 years goes really fast, unfortunately or fortunately. And I think that birds have given me so much, and I really feel that they're universal and they have brought joy into my life. They have brought passion into my life, and they have instilled a curiosity that I always hope that is contagious to other people. Because when we have curiosity, we open up the world to learning so much about birds and what their lives are like and how do we do better. And this year, our focus, in the past decade, we've kind of picked a moniker for what our task is for the year. And for 2026, our theme is when we know better, we do better. And that isn't just for all of us here, but it comes across in our education and outreach program, our webinars, and our online class to help people understand and relate to the complexities of what a parrot looks like in one's life. When you mentioned starting the Parrot Club, when it started in, I think you said 1974, was that it? Yeah. I got my first Amazon in 1972, and that's how long it was. And at that time, for those of you who don't know, I was living in the Middle East. I was in Kuwait. I married a Kuwaiti and I moved to Kuwait, which every Jewish girl does, right? Anyway, but there's a lot of similarity. But the bird market and the interest in birds, not just raptors, but in all kinds of birds throughout the Middle East and Asia, is really strong. And my in-laws gave me this Amazon, which I didn't know what it was back then because what was I, 25 years old? And and there was no internet. There were very few books there. It was fairly remote. And finding out what it was really something that put me on this quest. So it kind of brings me to where we are today and the goal of what I wanted to talk with you about. And if you've got questions for me, I'm happy to make this as a conversation as well. But I believe that parent health and welfare are so important and so connected to each other that that it is really, really important to group them together so that we're really seeing when we have health, we have welfare. When we have welfare, it leads us down all these other wonderful paths. So, as Amy so kindly put, I founded the organization in 1995, and I was able to reach out and make the decision that we wanted to work with many, many entities that work and respect and love and deal with parents on a much more global level. And we wanted to be involved in parent welfare. We wanted to be involved in all aspects of aviculture, certainly to be affiliated with veterinarians, because where would our birds be without that? And we also wanted to set programs, which we did successfully, to provide sanctuary, to provide a rescue program, to provide a rehabilitation program, conservation, adoption, and um, and to find ways to improve parrots' lives, but also to help those who wanted to learn and to be around parrots to do that as well. Um, Colorado has some unique licensing requirements. We have something that most states don't. We have something called the Pet Animal Care Facilities Act. It's called PACFA, which is a regulatory agency, and they sort of rule the roost when it comes to companion animals. And a number of years ago, they decided to really pursue improving the lives and welfare of parrots. So we have been a part of that organization really for many, many, many years. And then 3 years ago, the USDA established its new program under the Animal Welfare Act. And that was just an easy jump for us to take everything that we've been providing for PACFA to be able to go on to USDA. So safety and sanctuary are really, really important. Realizing this extraordinary gift and obligation that we have with parents that come into our care, that we want to make sure that those who want to adopt them and live with them can understand as best as they possibly can what it's like to have a bird in your life. And the collective wisdom of everyone on this call, I mean, think about all the things that I think about in 1972, what I didn't know. And here I am in 2026, thinking, oh my gosh, where did the time go? And every day brings something new. And I think that we want to make sure that we can help encourage and generate, as I said, curiosity so that all of us can basically responsibly improve the lives of the parents that depend on us so much. So in our early formative days, part of our bylaws is that we want to serve as a research and educational model for the greater good to communities at large. And we're a part of a lot of communities. We have um, our local living community, we have the bird community, we have pet industry, we have aviculture, all those kinds of things. And to help people understand what appropriate care looks like. And for us, and this was so nice to talk about this with Amy earlier, is that for us, and I know that many of you, I know Lori and so many of you that are on here also believe that education is the tool of choice. to better the quality of life of parrots in captivity and to help preserve the world's parrots and their wild habitats. Extremely, extremely important. And we know that parrots in the wild are one of the most endangered groups of birds in the world. And you can see all the joy I see every time I look at this picture of the Spix. I think about the years and years and years of work that went into building this new Spix population and the disaster that's going on between the Spix recovery program in Brazil and the government of Brazil. Who knows what's going to happen now? But cetaciforms are really one of the most endangered groups of birds in the wild. Or
Julie, can I interrupt 1 second? Do you think that you have your PowerPoint up?
I think so.
Okay, we're not seeing it.
Really?
No, we haven't seen
Oh,
it at all. I thought you were just talking before you.
no, I've got my, let me see. What do I need to do here?
Maybe
Take a
when
look.
you switch the camera around.
Um, can you see this?
I only see you. Did you
Oh,
start the
that's
share?
not good. Let's see. Oh dear, this is
Did,
not cool.
Maybe
did you hit
share
the share
screen.
button?
Did you hit share?
Share
I'm going
screen.
to try it again. Share. There we go. Let's see. Is it up now?
No.
Well, you have to pick the share.
I did. I did collect.
Ah, there we go.
There we go. Okay. There. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Amy, for stopping me.
Well, I wasn't aware that you were actually using the slides till you said about the picture of the Spix.
Okay. Well, let me go back so you can see it.
Okay.
Um, there we go. So this I took this picture in Laurel Park years and years and years ago. But there's been so much PR and on what's happening with the Spix macaw from this incredible achievement to now Brazilian government saying, no, we're talking about maybe euthanizing them, moving them out of their soft release because one of them tested positive for PBFD. And it's just on, and it's governments and ecology, and who knows what the heck is going to happen. But we know still hunting and poaching are some of the biggest impacts on wild parrots. We have the whole history of introduced enemies. You go down to the Caribbean, to Barbados, to the Bahamas, to the Caymans with feral cats, with weasels, and some of the other animals that were brought in, the predators that were brought in to control the rat population, the rodent population, and the sugar plantations. And then we look at natural disasters. That there even still is a living St. Vincent Amazon is amazing to me. That look what Puerto Rico did after their last terrible hurricane in reestablishing that population of Amazons. And as those of us on this joining together this evening, that we can probably all pretty much agree that parrots' attraction and popularity generates the biggest threat to them. Right now, there is so much noise about the difficulties and the increase in trapping and poaching and trafficking of gray parrots because in many of these areas that never previously had access to birds, what's happened is that they see birds that talk, that are cute, that are fun, all these things, and they want them. And some of the governments in Africa, the Liberians have done a wonderful, wonderful job. But right now, the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, people that I've been working with for 50 years are working so hard to get the Congolese government and all the ministers and all the people who take graft and corruption as a part of their daily medicine, to get them established so that gray parrots are at least somewhat protected. So we see this popularity in the bird trade. And in my lifetime living and being with parrots, I have seen that as companion parrots become more available everywhere, people have more discretionary income, that birds are highly sought after as pets. We also know that one of the other threats for parrots is their loss of habitat and the economic impact of what that kind of loss looks like. Life in the wild is one of survival. Food and water. This is a picture I took years ago when I was in Brazil, and we created an area called the Gabriel Valley, and it provided guards for a soft released and nesting area of greenwings, of hyacinths, a number of Aratinga conures, Amazons, and it was really, really wonderful to be there. And the people who were providing protection for those animals were people who'd previously had been the traffickers and the poachers. So life in the wild for a parrot is surviving. Food and water, sleep, safety in numbers, finding ways to avoid predators, their social group and interaction, finding a suitable partner, nest site and propagation, and of course, sustainability. So these are all things that are combining to make parrots very, very challenging in our lives and caring for them. I'm going to move my camera here just a minute. There we go. Sorry, thanks. So we take all of these jobs that a parrot has to do in the wild, and we put them in an artificial environment, i.e. our homes or a zoo or whatever. And what do they do to replace what's needed for them to survive, and that they have the genetics to help them do that? What do they do instead when they're in our homes? So Animal Welfare Act and the standards for birds, I'm so glad that it exists. And actually, I'm a longtime member of American Federation of Aviculture, and I remember years and years and years ago, it's over 25 years now, that Marshall Myers, I think was his last name, said that the government is coming. The government is coming. It's not here now, but you guys that are in aviculture need to figure out ways to improve the lives of parrots that you keep, and establishing, standardized welfare concerns for birds. So under APHIS, these regulations are supposed to ensure the humane handling, care, treatment, transportation of birds, and regulated under the Animal Welfare Act. And for those of you who don't have it, I provided Amy a PDF of this presentation, and you can go on in and take a look at APHIS, what actually is required. So what are different reasons for relinquishment? Well, I'm sure that all of us, and as a bird club, or those of you that have birds, get asked this question all the time. Will you take my bird? Nobody wants it. My friend's parents died. That the bird needs a home. But we kind of look at the top 10 reasons. And it's actually has changed a lot since the pandemic. But number one always seems to be behavioral problem, and including biting, noise, aggression, and feather destructive behavior. Number two, it's not necessarily so much the conflict with the significant other or spouse, but we have a lot of aging caregivers out there. And we are routinely getting birds in now, and maybe Lori can address this as well with the Oasis. We are getting birds in from people who've been placed into memory care, but then we've got others that are astute, able to communicate, that are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. I had a call the other day from a woman who has had her sulfur-crested for 29 years. And I was talking to this very robust, pleasant woman. And when she told me her age, there was no way I believed it. She said she was 90 years old. And the physicality of caring for her bird was huge. And yet she'd had that bird, for 30 years. So I think another thing that we see so often, and I think this is especially for the uninitiated who decide to go to a bird store or whatever and get their bird, that humans go in with a set of expectations. And when you take a wild animal or a semi-wild animal and you put it in a human environment, expectations are going to become a conflict. And how do we work with those people who bring birds into their lives to equalize and to figure out how do we manipulate and successfully change behaviors or environments, whatever we want to talk about, to improve the lives not only of the birds, but the birds with the human. Pandemic changed things a lot, that people lost a lot of their income and didn't feel that they could any longer continue to care and do the right things, especially veterinary care for their birds. Some of them underwent tremendous financial hardship, or people died. And we saw a big increase when that happened. I don't know why someone says I'm moving and I can't take my bird. That always has been a question for me, because birds actually can adapt very, very well. We also get a lot of birds in from other animal shelters. We have several bird stores that contact us routinely when they have a bird that's problematic and it's not able to find a home and they don't want it taking up space. We are seeing a lot of animal cruelty and seizure cases. I've been involved in many, many of those situations, going in around the country as an expert witness on what's appropriate care. Absolutely a lot. Yeah, I can see, Marla, that and Susan, exactly what you wrote. So everything, yes, the birds found, people have left it alone. If those of you who have followed us, we often will get in birds that have significant medical needs, and their owner or their caregiver can no longer provide for it. And all of us know that that can be really, really expensive. And then we have a group that we call rescue or abandoned, lost and not claimed. And most of the animal shelters and are really throughout the state in Colorado, don't want to have to report all their statistics on length of stay for parrots. So they may hold them for the designated time and then they don't want them there anymore. And they often then contact us to take in the parrots. We just got in a group of 27 birds from a situation like that. So all of us who operate nonprofit organizations, or if we're aviculturists, parrot welfare in many ways is the business of saving lives. And we all know that we love birds, but love doesn't mean the same thing to every single person. And we have to go through and understand what situations are acceptable, what aren't. And I think that for so long, we were all considered, or a lot of us were considered, oh, that crazy bird lady. Well, we value the work we do. We value the birds that we love. And we know that birds depend upon us. There's a lot of noise on the captive parrot crisis. I don't necessarily call it a crisis. I think when we get enough data, that can be really, really beneficial and helpful. What about for their welfare, their well-being, and who advocates for them? And what programs for those of us that provide these kinds of service for birds? How do we sustain what we're doing? We look at, again, rules and regulations. Fortunately, as I mentioned, we've got PACFA and we've got the AWA, but not all states have that, and not all organizations fall under those categories. And then we talk about community collaboration, and that's something that I really, really appreciate, Amy, about the club, is that you've collaborated and you've built really strong relationships. And it's wonderful to see so many diverse people and locations come together for something like this. So, yeah, I'm noticing Myra posted about the birds acquired for children. You'd say, the good news and the bad news about getting a parrot is they don't grow up and leave home. Kids do. And so it's a double-edged sword. And for parents to say, oh yeah, I'm going to be committed to this bird when my kid goes off to college or whatever, and you want to go, you don't even know the first thing about this. It's an enormous responsibility. So how do we bring this together in meaningful ways of conversation? One of the things that we really like to think about are the 5 domains of animal welfare. And it used to be called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which was developed as a part of a psychological profile. But I think that what we can all agree on, or at least I hope so, that all companion animals have the right to complete their natural lifespan. And there are 5 domains of animal welfare that contribute to this. So we also know that human stewardship carries responsibilities and freedoms that are just not possible for the non-human animal side. I love this picture from the 1800s with this Amazon perched on her shoulder. And you can certainly see that this is Teddy Roosevelt as a 14-year-old with Eli, the hyacinth macaw on him, that was in the White House way back then. Imagine a 14-year-old caring for a hyacinth. He ended up caring for a country, but he certainly was an adventurer at heart. So human stewardship is, how do we educate someone about how to become a responsible caregiver? And parrots and people, there are always impacts on that human-parrot relationship. Lack of caregiver knowledge, misinformation, and boy, that runs rampant all the time. Stress and distress. What about physical force, punishment, isolation, and loneliness? We see that so often that really, really well-meaning, intentioned people, instead of creating a bigger, broader, comfortable world for their bird, make it smaller and smaller and smaller and narrower, that pretty soon the bird doesn't have anything to do to be able to be a bird. And then out of misinformation, a terrible situation has happened for that particular bird. We see the overdependency on human. And for those of you who have who bring in birds, I mean, it is almost a joke to say, oh yeah, my cockatoo needs to be the only bird, and my cockatoo needs to be with either a man or a woman, but someone who stays home all day and can provide for the bird. How does that even come to be, that kind of overdependency on humans? And we deal with those situations as well to help people understand that even though what they think they're doing in terms of welfare and making their bird's life better absolutely is not. We see malnutrition. Fortunately, there's so much great information out there now on parrot diets, fresh foods, supplements. There's some really great quality products that are there. Christine's Chop Shop or Bird Street Bistro. Some of the products that are out there are wonderful. And there really is no excuse anymore for giving your bird an all-seed diet. Many of the birds that we see have subclinical illness, and sometimes that change in their life and going from their original owner to coming to us is just enough stress in their life to trigger it, and birds can fail to thrive. And again, as I mentioned, incompatible expectations. So the 5 domains of welfare. This little jardines that's on the left-hand side, the people thought, well, something was wrong. Their bird bit their bigger Amazon bit the bird's beak, but hey, the beak was still there until the bird came to us and the beak had been totally eroded. These two eclectus were named Irish and Alfie, and I can only think when I set them down on this rock and they're looking at each other going, what the is that, or you look like me and I look like you, but that this is something that's so common. We see this all the time. So we need to examine what environment is like. We need to look at what nutrition is. This is what welfare encompasses. We need to understand what health looks like. We need to understand what's appropriate in terms of behavior. How do we direct that? How do we know what's natural for our birds? What do we do? And then we talk a lot about the biopsychosocial needs of birds and how do we get that fulfilled. So sheltering and parrot welfare, there is a lot of impact on parrots and related birds. Number one, the disposition and the stress for the bird. We see a lot of inappropriate shelter environments. Most animal shelters don't have well-established or well-designed or even thought-out areas to house birds when that situation arises. We see, and this is less than it used to be, thank goodness, but we see unregulated shelters, rescues, and sanctuaries. And I'm sure that if we looked hard enough, we'd still find a lot of those operating, under the radar. And do we call them collector hoarders? What do we call them? I think that traditional adoption policies fail when it comes to placing birds because the learning curve is huge, and every day is filled with questions. And when we work with an adopter, we like to believe that we are a partner in education with that adopter. We want success for that bird and for that person. We do a lot of post-adoption follow-up. It's extremely important when we don't hear from someone, we're there. And we continue to see that there are increases in collectors, whether they're hoarders. There will always be hoarders, because that's a part of the human psyche for some people, that put financial and physical strain on legitimate parrot shelters and rescues and sanctuaries. And parrots and parrot welfare is certainly the business of saving lives, but I think it's really important to remember that it is a business because we all need money to pay our bills. And Lord knows that there are plenty of them. And when this happens, we have uncertain futures for the birds that depend upon us for their quality of care. Things to consider. Behavior is a study of one. Dr. Susan Friedman has made that so important. And that if we look at each bird, that bird is unique unto itself. But we know that as a generalization, is that there are species-specific needs. The diet of a hyacinth macaw or a palm cockatoo is not going to be the same diet as little green cheek condor. It's not going to be the same diet as an Amazon. It may be, and it certainly may be completely different than a gray parrot. In my home, I live with a number of birds, and my last original bird is my gray parrot Mookie, and he has been with me for 41 years now. And we get in so many grays, and I care for a few other grays. And all these other grays, if they see a piece of meat, a chicken bone, a piece of fish, something like that, they're like going crazy. They can't wait to be fed that kind of animal protein. The guys that I've all raised and grown and had my whole life, they're not interested. We don't do that. But we certainly know that for most birds, animal protein is not necessarily what's going to create the healthiest kinds of birds. So we need to know the species we're working with and how many species are involved. We look at our individual needs as well as the flock needs. And in our buildings, because it gets cold here in Colorado, we have our different rooms in our 3 different buildings, and we open up into large social enclosures, and we have 3 really, really big flights for the birds. And birds love to be able to go outside, spend their time, come on back in, and during that time they can socialize. They can spend times with their favorite buddy. Oftentimes we'll get in birds that are a pair, and they get to us, and one of them says, "I want a divorce." And they dump that bird. So we always need to figure out that, again, it's a study of one, and what works for some doesn't always work for all. So when we talk about biopsychosocial, we're talking about dietary, nutritional, cognitive enrichment, behavioral enrichment, and physical enrichment. Extremely, extremely important. So all human and non-human animals are born with an equal claim on life and the same right to existence. And we have to ask, is quality existence an inherent right? And there are a lot of people who don't believe that it is for animals. And when we look at this in this particular photo, this was probably, it was a terrible tragedy. It was 42 macaws. And when we were called in, we had these scenes with dead birds, and this was years worth of seed mix, and that's all the birds had to eat. It was pretty amazing. So we look at this picture, and does everybody think, well, birds are messy and destructive, so who cares? What's the big deal? They're going to make a mess anywhere. But we look about food, water. We look about bar spacing. We look at lighting. We look at substrate. We look at lack of enrichment. And yet the person who had these birds thought that he was doing just fine by them. How do you go from that platform to the opportunity of providing education and insight and open up this particular person's world to what's not right and what needs to happen? So through no fault of their own, what went wrong? And we take these magnificent creatures, and when they come to us, they often look like this. And I don't think any person starting out with one of these birds ever intended this what would happen and what their bird would look like. And these birds depended upon the people for their care, and they were failed. So life free as a bird is often one beset by stress. And looking at this female Eki, it was really amazing to see over about 6, a little over 6 months, she went from that severe feather destruction to those beautiful, beautiful new feathers. You can see those Amazons caught up, all ready for export, and take a look to that picture of the blue fronts in that cage. They were in a dungeon, and the woman couldn't even get down the stairs to go care for her birds anymore. And the birds had been living like that for years. And then on the bottom, this little TGF, what we call him a rescue. When I found him walking on the street when we were up in the Aspen area, I found this little naked thing with a yellow head and thought, what the heck is that? Well, probably the Oasis sees this quite often. The Clairol Conure, where somebody comes and it's across the border and finds an Amazon that's talking on, and the vendor's got a bunch of little parrot babies, sells them. Person thinks they're going to get this great bird and take it home with them, and it ends up looking like the picture to the right. And this happened to be a little white-eyed conure. So we call this little fellow Mato because he really, really survived tremendous odds. Neglect. What do you do when you look at it? When we see a bird like Coco, this green-winged macaw, I mean, the person that had this bird, it was staggering. There was no way she could look at this and say something's not wrong. And something was drastically wrong. But she was embarrassed, and then she got worried that animal control was going to be called on her, and she contacted us. And you can see that we were ultimately able, by that middle picture, to reshape Coco's beak. It was just amazing. But he fought a long time to stay alive, and then it became too much to ask of him, and he passed. The great bill that you're seeing on the right side, that bird lived with that beak for over 30 years. How much time and effort would it have been to take that bird and to get it to an appropriate veterinarian and have the kind of work that needed to be done on to help that bird and reshape its beak? It couldn't ever even preen its own feathers. So working in a shelter environment and being involved in these hardships and things that really demonstrate our human failure, it takes a toll. And that working in this environment is so important to find out what is the good, what is that we take away so that we can continue to do the very best and the right thing by the animals and the birds that depend upon us so much. You can see some of these guys. This is just this past 6 months. This one little black-capped conure, his pectoral mass was so atrophied, and he had sustained a pretty significant injury to his lower mandible, so it was flexible, and he couldn't actually even bite with it. This Amazon that the guy had for 60 years, it had this enormous growth growing out of its left ear, and its claws, as you can see on the far right, his nails were so overgrown that he really couldn't even open his toes. And the little conure is still with us, which is amazing. The Amazon, unfortunately, passed. So what do we look for in a healthy bird? And this is some of the things that we talk about with our animal control people. And this little puffball, this little blue-fronted Amazon that you see on the left, the Shays who are on this, I saw their name come up tonight. They are the ones who are providing a wonderful home with this boy named Peta, and he was named Peta because he was a pain in the ass. And he actually was living with a female blue-fronted Amazon for quite a while, and they were in a breeding situation, and the breeders' green-winged macaws got out, and they went on over to the cage where Peta and his bride were, and Peta lost his beak defending his bride. But he's robust, he's learned how to eat, he maintains his weight, he's just beautiful, and he's even giving kisses, so he's pretty wonderful. And we take a look too at the nares and the beak of the bird, like the yellow-naped Amazon that you see over here on the right-hand side. And this is really important when we provide grooming opportunities to the public. These are things that we will review and go over with the bird's owner and help them understand where they can do better, what they can use to modify, and help them keep that bird physically healthy. Assessing the environment. Well, we always want to talk about cage size and safety. And I remember early on in my aviculture history when it was routinely said that, oh, gray parrots were really clumsy flyers. And so the gray parrots really needed smaller cages than other birds. Well, I think that fortunately we know that that's not true. And if I could wish for one thing, that we would have larger indoor cages for our birds. But our space is limited and we give them the very best size that we can. And because they are outside so much during the year, that they have a lot of free time and exercise time. So we look at the environment, at least there's things for the birds to do. Food and water, we use food as an enrichment as well. And make sure the air quality is wonderful. And in Colorado, we're lucky because we have so many days of sunshine a year that it's really awesome for our birds to be able to be outside. There. So these are some other little things that I've seen people feeding their birds during the last decade or so. This one gal routinely would take her Moluccan cockatoo and put him in one of the cottonwood tree, and give him a big whole hunk of corn on the cob. He was so happy. You can see people think that lories just need lory nectar and whatever. And these little lories in Australia were having a feast of all different kinds of foods and vegetables. Sunflower seeds, they can be acceptable. We use them when we're doing training. They've got a really high value and a lot of birds love to work for those treats. And then of course you've got the nectar and water that many lories like to eat. And in addition, we provide pellets for our flock as well. So this is what some of our outside flights look like. And as you can see, this little sulfur crust that he's busy digging to China, we love to give them an opportunity to do that. These flights are about 40 feet in length, and they're 12 feet high, and they're about 10 feet wide. But we go out and maintain them, and they just absolutely, absolutely love to dig. If you can look over on the bottom lower left, you can see these little tiny cockatiels there foraging in the wilds of Elizabeth, Colorado. They're having a blast, and they love to go down and walk around and hunt for things. It's so much fun to watch them, and they just love being on the ground. We get a lot of donated supplies. When we get a whole bunch of paperback books, we have the zen of folding parrot pages and putting seeds or treats or pieces of nuts in there, and the bird gets to forage for them. And then you can see that some of our other birds, you can see that nice full crop. He's had a great time foraging, and he's out hanging out and just getting to enjoy the rest of his day. Come on. There we are. So the 5 domains. What are the requisites for health? We've talked about this. There's psychological needs, food, water, and shelter. Environmental. We want to set it up for success and safety. And those of you that are looking at this picture, if you look kind of closely in the middle of that tree, you'll see a bunch of double yellow-headed Amazons that were going to roost. It was about 5:30, 5:45 at night. I was down in Tamaulipas, Mexico. So we know about environmental, what we want to do and set it up for success and safety. But we want to talk about behavior. We like to use positive reinforcement and building trust through the principles of applied behavior analysis. Again, our biopsychosocial validation is a living creature through the communication with the flock. And it's understanding what a bird needs from hopefully a bird's point of view, which they can teach us when we house them in social flocks. And then fulfillment, the need to be and to do what that being was born to do. And I think as we continue and move forward, and this is what's so important about conservation, we get new ideas all the time about what we could do to bring to the table for our birds. Pigeon, doves, and chickens, we are always seeing those. We've been brought a number of pigeons. We've hand raised some pigeons that were chicks when we found them. They've done absolutely, absolutely wonderfully. And we're always brought chickens and guinea fowl, peacocks, and geese and ducks. We try and rehome them. There's a wonderful farm sanctuary not far from us, and so we've got a couple of good outlets for those critters. Whoops, sorry. So our focus on education really involves a variety of things. We have shelter in service training. We have mentorships and interns, and our internship program is really, really successful. We work with a couple different universities and community colleges with a veterinary technician program or their zoo program or their animal shelter, and it's absolutely wonderful for us to do that. And there is nothing quite so exciting as seeing someone young just blossom with the idea and the feeling that birds have touched their lives so importantly that whole new horizons opened up. Our adoption program is really, really educational. No one can ever just walk in and get a bird. Most adoptions take around 3 months for that to even happen. So if somebody is in a hurry, that really doesn't work well with us. We do adopt out of state, but the person has to make a really dedicated visit to Colorado and stay a few days to make sure that this is the right fit. We've put a lot of work into our Beyond the Bird Basics class. There's no charge. I encourage any of you to take it. We just published our new behavior module, and I'm really, really happy with what information that shares. So veterinary conferences, a lot of them now, post-pandemic are virtual, and like our talk this evening, it's wonderful to be able to participate in that. And then in situ conservation programs. Amy and I were talking a little bit before everybody joined in and that how important conservation is to the Parrot Club, but to all of us too, because we don't want our children or grandchildren or whatever generations are following us to be in a world without birds. It's pretty much what I want to share with you today because that is where my passion lies. I'm always reachable through our Facebook Messenger. My email is there. Jessica is my right hand. She's the director of operations for our aviary. And I also want to say that, yes, we do have employed personnel. We couldn't do this with just volunteers, but we also have absolutely phenomenal volunteers. And I like to think that basic volunteers just add to the icing on the cake, and they take us from good to great. Years ago, I saw this quote. It was actually before I started the Gabriel Foundation, and it stuck with me. And it's by Antoine Saint-Exupéry, who wrote The Little Prince. And he was an aviator in France. And I think about this all the time. Many have forgotten this truth, but you must not forget it. You remain responsible forever for what you have tamed. And I like people to understand that that's just not during our lifetimes, but it's for the lifetime of our birds. And that means that when we're no longer around, we have to make sure that those birds will be safe and provided for when we're not there to physically do that. Estate planning and guidance is really, really important. We got a webinar that we'll be hosting on that, but many organizations, and Phoenix Landing has a great setup, program on establishing a pet care trust and estate planning. So that's kind of, let me see. Do we do any education for pet store owners, personnel, and breeders? Some of them are really defensive, and there are some that come down here and spend time with us. And I think it's really tough, when selling birds to anyone, without vetting them or giving them honest information about the birds. And like everything, there's good, bad, and ugly. And I'm pleased to say that there are a few good ones. Unfortunately, there are more bad ones. And that we are open to sharing our resources and knowledge with those pet store owners and personnel and breeders, and finding a way to deliver the information that doesn't come across as judgy or accusatory takes a little bit of time, and having crucial conversations with those people is really, really important. So we do have some that have been interested, but I think there's always going to be a really big need for it. Absolutely. So I've got time for questions if any of you have things that you want to ask me about what we do at the foundation. You can find all of our financials on our website. Like other nonprofits, we file our IRS Form 990, and we're constantly redoing our website. And I want to thank you, Lori, so much. I think that all of us as a community working together really have the opportunity to make life better for so many birds. And it takes a village. And those of us that are absolutely crazy about birds have a voice, and we can be heard, and we are heard. So I want to thank every one of you for doing the very, very best that you can with your flock. And that also by learning and supporting aviculture, by supporting your bird club, and by having curiosity and a desire to learn. That means the world to me, and I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Julie. This was fabulous. I'd like to ask you to stop the share, and that way we can get people on the screen and we can
There we
start.
go.
I just have to say, the brief look I saw of some of your aviaries, they look phenomenal, though.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned something about having cages indoors. Do you have open aviaries indoors as well?
We do. We have 3 separate big buildings, and there are different species rooms in those buildings. And then those buildings each open up to outdoor flights on either side so that we can open up a door and birds can go out. We also have some really huge aviaries. Some of ours are 100 feet by 80 feet. They're really, really big. And those aviaries need to be accessed by their keeper actually taking them outside. We've constructed a little flyway where birds can walk or fly down this long outdoor corridor to get into one of their big flights, which is wonderful for those birds. But because we want to provide for the safety of birds, what we have found is that when you have a long-established flock of birds and a newbie moves into the block, it's not always so nice for that newbie. They oftentimes need some time. So we will do a graduated introduction from time out on a stand or a swing, in a larger cage outside, and then put them into sort of a group flight, which is kind of like an introductory flight with a number of different species, and they get to hear and to be around and learn how to become social with the others. As I mentioned earlier when we first started, that we have a lot of birds that have divorces when they get here. And it's really true. We have one hyacinth, her name is Singita, and her longtime live-in boyfriend was Bonito, and they had been a couple. Well, they actually were part of a threesome, but the threesome was their human caregiver. And when she could no longer provide for them, Bonito and Singita were like, okay, all right, I guess we'll do what we need to do. And the moment that they came to us, Singita said to Bonito, bye, babe. It was great. Don't call me. I'll call you. And he was like, oh my God, what happened? She dumped me. And he went into a terrible depression.
No.
To say that years later, he has the new best friend, a military macaw named Roby for Nairobi. And so he's done all right, but it was really something. So putting birds in new social flights, and when you have a flight that can house 20 or 30 birds, it's got to be big so they know how to get away from each other. And that's one of the things that is a detriment that so many companion parrots have never had that opportunity. And so we are always incredibly watchful for new birds and new situations. And we know also that there are certain times of the year when we're just not going to put birds in some of those flights and together because they don't behave so nicely. They earn a reputation. And so we've got a variety of things. For those of you who think that about our census of birds, prior to the pandemic, we housed around 600 to 650 birds every day. When the pandemic hit, it was really, really, really hard. And a lot of those birds that came to us were from big interventions or rescues from around the states. There would be a large group of birds that coming in. We haven't had large groups come into us recently, except for this one I just mentioned earlier, just because it's an overwhelming cost for all of us. So we have worked really, really hard to take a few, and it's not even cherry picking them, but the ones who need the kind of environment that we can provide. So we decided that once the pandemic was there, that we needed to cut down on the number of birds in our care and to responsibly provide for those birds that depend upon us for everything. So 250 birds is still a lot of birds. It's plenty. And the great thing is that we can spend more individualized time working with them, which is really, really, really wonderful. And it's important to us as well.
How did you cut down on the birds? Where did the other birds go?
Was a treat. Well, we had some adopted, some, as part of life passed away. And we had to say no to some of the larger intakes. So, yes, yeah. And it was hard to do. It's hard to say no. And to be completely realistic, none of us can save them all. And it's hard to say that. It's hard to live it when I know that there's a situation. And we're dedicated to making life better for the birds that are here. And I thank our adopters. Yes, we do have attrition. We do have birds that come back, and we take back any bird that was adopted out. And we've got one that we adopted out, and he's a blue and gold macaw, and his name is Lenny, and we adopted him out in 2002, and yesterday his adopter, who is now 84, could no longer physically care for him, and she kept everything to remember, and Lenny is coming back. So we're really, really happy for that.
I'm glad you mentioned about letting the birds choose who they want to be with, because I see this so often. Somebody has a bird and they acquire another bird and then they just stick it in the cage with the first one. Like,
Right,
oh, you're the same species, you should just be able to get along. And I
right.
always liken this to, let's say you have a tiny apartment and then another person shows up and you just put that person right there in the same bedroom with you. I mean, you would be horrified. So, I mean, I always let my birds choose if they want to live together. But you see people go, well, I don't have room for more than one cage. Well, if you don't have room for more than one cage, then you don't have room for more than one bird.
Yeah, good for you.
Can't assume that they're going to want to live together. Susan? Oh, you have to unmute.
Okay, there, I'm unmuted. Yeah, talking about letting birds choose and talking about what happens when you introduce new ones. I've had Amazon since 1980, since I was 5. And two of my Amazons, one that I'm now down to 2 Amazons, my Red Lord Amazon, who I got in 1982, and my orange winged Amazon. My orange wing was given to me by a friend in 1984 at 4 years old. She had been cage mates with her double yellowhead. Well, that orange wing apprenticed herself and bonded to my Red Lord Amazon. I moved to Florida. 14 years later, I came back to New York, and my friend gave me her double yellowhead. Well, Kelly remembered that double yellowhead. He remembered her. She dumped Bogart like a hot potato and went right back to Romez. Romez died about 10 years ago. Kelly was still not too interested in going back to Bogart, even though Bogart was courting her. Well, now, just in the past year, she and Bogart are back together, sharing a cage, no interest in going into their own cages anymore. So things have kind of become full circle. But one thing I really learned with Amazons, when you introduce a new Amazon to the household, be ready, especially if they speak the same language, if they're the same species, like I had 2 double yellowheads at the time. I said it was double yellowhead hell for 6 weeks. They did nothing but vocalize to each other like crazy. And it's just the way it is. But, they got over that initial 6-week period. But I also found that to keep the yelling down, what people should do, birds are yelling often to communicate. And if you put them closer together, they may not have to yell as much. It worked for me.
That's a great tip, Susan.
Yeah,
Yes.
it worked.
Wow. Oh, Lori, by the way, asked you to post the donation link for people to donate. I will also, when I send out the video, I'll make sure that information is in there as well.
Okay. That's good.
Oh, we have some other comments. Let's see.
Good. I thought Susan was going to talk about Moluccan cockatoos.
I know very little about Moluccan cockatoos.
Well, I just looked at your beautiful shade of pink, and I thought,
oh, there you go.
There was a woman for years and years. She's gone now. Her name was Jean Pattison,
Oh, my friend Jeannie.
African queen.
Oh,
Remember her gray parrot hairdo?
yes.
Lady, yeah.
Oh, I knew Jeannie. I first met Jeannie in 1988 at the
Right.
AFA convention in Tampa
Yeah.
when her first grays hatched. Jeannie had this big head of black hair. And you know, everybody who knows Jeannie knows her eyes. Well, she was running around so thrilled that they hatched. And she never lost that enthusiasm.
Yeah, she was just amazing and so talented. I mean, her
Oh, wasn't
work, she was a great artist
she? Yeah,
too.
she was.
What a character. High heels and a gray parrot hairdo.
Oh, yeah.
I'll
That
always
was
think of
that.
her. Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, she would be happy, Jeannie.
Mhm.
Julie, one thing, I think we had you come to the Long Island Parrot Society one time years and years ago, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken.
Yes, I
And
love lips. It's
yeah,
wonderful.
that was great.
Mhm.
But you know, we're always hearing controversies about sanctuaries and shelters and rescue organizations backbiting and fighting and carrying on with each other. I've never heard anything like that about the Gabriel Foundation. And I hope it's because it hasn't happened.
Yeah,
But
it hasn't. And I think that, there were a couple of situations a number of years ago that got a little heated, but I think it was just a lot of misinformation was put out there. And I just believe 100% in transparency.
yeah,
And that's what it is. And if people, we have an open door, people come and visit.
that's huge.
There's, I don't see any reason to make what goes on here a mystery so that people don't feel like they know what's going on. And certainly we are always out and about. We love to do our educational and outreach events. And I think we've tried to just stay to the focus of education, education, and welfare and health and compassion. And I think that that whole compassion is so, so important. But sometimes it can be so emotional that it takes a toll on someone. And that we
Oh,
forget that that compassion can be used to to create new relationships and new understandings. And I also like very much, and I owe this a lot to Dr. Friedman, is that when we hear words that are labels or argumentative or secretive or mean or whatever the word is, or even love, is to operationalize what that looks like. And the reason it was so important to me, we did the very first Living and Learning with Parrots with Susan Friedman that was ever there. And one of the reasons that I did this is I was having real difficulty because people would say to me how much they love their birds. But we know people that smack their wives around or their husbands or their kids, and they say, I'm only doing this because I love you. So love doesn't mean the same thing to every single person because we've got history that we filter and see that with. So I think that when we're talking to ask and to develop a rapport, even if the best option is that we're civil, is what's crucial because those birds need all of us. And sooner or later, some of us are going to need help. And to create an enmity among organizations is really, really tough. And, part of the fact is that we all know the costs involved and caring for birds. And that probably, well, I've certainly seen it, that the number of grantors that are out there funding parrot-related programs has significantly diminished. Parrots have fallen down, and I think they've fallen down the list because people are uncomfortable. They don't like thinking about keeping birds in cages. They don't like seeing animals that can fly stuck in a cage. They don't like to see birds in conditions that some people may think is just okay, that are dirty, messy, and filthy. And so people get really uncomfortable because where do birds sit? Where do they fit in our lives, you know? And so all of us have a lot of work to do because none of us wants to be that crazy bird lady or that crazy bird guy. I'd like it when someone says, "Oh, that Julie, she's crazy about birds." That's fine to me, but not, can you believe how crazy she is? She's spending all this time with parrots. And I guess they could certainly say that. So I think that breaking down some of these high volume labels that did get tossed around, that when we seek a better level of understanding, we can generate more kindness and compassion. And then by doing that, we can take action, whatever decision we want to go. I mean, years and years ago, there was a bird store that I used to frequent when I took a break from Colorado. I took a 10-year break in California. And I used to go in that store all the time because I learned so much. But I also was very fortunate. There were some wonderful, wonderful aviculturists in that store that were able to give me really good information. And I'd never thought about it or looked things from that particular person's point of view. And I ended up learning a lot. So I think if we stay open, put our egos aside, it's not always easy.
Was it Omar's?
I've known Omar for so long.
Oh my.
Yep. Yep.
I kind of thought so.
And I mean, and that was the day. I mean, that's where Gabriel came from. And I learned a lot from Omar. And I learned a lot from when he was married, when he back then was married to Fran. So
Fran, yes.
Well,
I remember the first time I met Omar, and you know what Omar looked like. And he came up to me. I think it was at AFA, and he's wearing a suit. And he says, "Hello, Susan. I'm Omar. Fran said I should do something nice for you." Thinking, well, what'd you have in mind?
Yeah.
But that's what I was writing for Bird Talk all the time.
Yeah, I know, it's so much fun.
But oh my, yeah, he was pretty drop dead gorgeous at that time.
Yeah, so that was a long, long time ago. So
I too long ago, like 1990.
Yeah.
1988.
Yeah, right around there, because I to California in 1988.
Okay, so that would have been the time.
And I loved the bird world in California.
Oh yeah.
It was energized. I'm sure it was like that in Florida. I imagine it was in Arizona. There have been a lot of states. There was just so much to learn, and people were open and excited, and you could see reflections.
Gail Worth.
Yeah, absolutely, all that.
Yeah. Do you have good avian veterinary care out there? Do you have a medical clinic or a local avian vet?
Us?
Yes.
We have probably some of the best avian veterinarians that there are.
Oh, good.
And as I mentioned earlier, when we're talking about avian cardiology, Dr. Brenda Fitzgerald. I met her years and years ago when she was a veterinarian at Dr. Brian Spears' practice, Medical Center for Birds. And Brenna relocated out here 4 years ago, maybe it's 5, and she's awesome. And so is her team. They are strictly avian and exotics, no others. There are a couple other veterinarians who see more mainstream animals, but are also really, really, really good with birds. But if you need a specialty, we are fortunate to have a number of diplomated avian veterinarians right now.
Oh,
And it's wonderful.
excellent.
Mhm.
So many places are deserts for avian veterinary
They
care.
are.
So I'll be talking with people online, and we'll be discussing a health issue with the bird. I'll say, well, they really should go to an avian vet, and they'll say, well, the nearest one is 300 miles away. So it's very difficult to advise people when there just is no local avian veterinary care for them.
Mhm. It's so important. And those of us that know, when we were up at our original location in Aspen, it was a 3.5 to 4 hour drive to Denver to visit our veterinarians. But we did it. And I just think that we can even get to some place in a couple of hours, that we're going to get the kind of caliber and quality of care is so, so important. And
Right.
we do a lot for our veterinarians. We'll help them train. Their new staff will take in birds and do a bird handling class with them, so they get some experience. A lot of the ones that are coming out of tech school, or they're youngsters, and my words, starting out, find a way to give them experience. And we'll invite them to come down and spend time with us, and most of them do.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, it's really exciting. I wish I could say that the vets at the university, Colorado State University, they used to have a wonderful avian department. It's not that way anymore.
Oh, well, that's too bad.
Disappointing. So we're very, very fortunate. And our veterinary costs are one of the most expensive line items on our P&L.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I hope they at least give you a good discount.
Some do, some don't. Yeah. Yeah, one would hope, but it's tough. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But
Well, I mean, it looks like a beautiful place.
it is. It's a beautiful area, and with Colorado, 300 days of sun a year is something that's really in favor. So, I mean, I can't believe it. I'm saying that Colorado has bipolar weather. Today is January 13th. Our parrots were outside in 62-degree weather today. How does that even happen? This is climate change, right? And they have been outside equal time this last 6 weeks, inside and outside, because a couple of days made it up into the 70s. It's just unheard of. So I'm sorry for the water table. I'm sorry for my trees. I'm sorry for the plants. I'm sorry for all that. But boy, I'm not sorry that our birds get to enjoy being outside.
And I guess with 36 acres, you don't have to worry about neighbors complaining
I
about
sure don't. Never done that one, okay? And when I was originally looking at property and I found this particular property, some of the neighbors were so worried that we would just be inundated with hundreds of visitors, that we would completely ruin the quality of life here. And I said, nope, that's on us, not going to do that. And all those neighbors of a lot of those places have subdivided and gotten small. So we've got a nice island right here. And
And
we're
the
700.
mucking cockatoos can scream as loud as they
They
want.
can, absolutely. And I don't know, I've got my office door shut, but a couple of my highs were just not very happy with this door shut tonight. And they were calling out. So yeah. Mm.
Do we have any other questions or comments? There are a whole bunch of comments in the chat thanking you for the
I
presentation.
know, it's just wonderful. I appreciate it so much. I
Oh,
had a rough day. I had to say goodbye to one of my llamas, and it was
oh
really,
no.
I thought, how am I going to get through this today without crying?
Oh,
Because
oh my God,
George
I
has
love
been with me
llamas.
a long time. Yeah, and
Wow.
so so I have come through this feeling appreciated, and I'm appreciative of the time that you spent with me as well.
Well, we're very grateful that you agreed to speak with us tonight. This was just wonderful and awe-inspiring, and I hope if anyone's out in Colorado, they go visit.
Oh,
Um,
you are welcome. Absolutely. We're 45 minutes from the airport.
wow.
Easy
And
peasy to get to.
people, if you'd love to donate to help with the
Yes,
upkeep, that would be greatly appreciated.
absolutely.
Google the Gabriel Foundation. I'll also be sending out the video to everybody, and it'll include a link. But again, Julie, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation.
Thanks to everyone who participated tonight. It was really my pleasure and my honor. So thank you so much.